Hello and welcome back. In the last video we introduced the idea of gaining a new skill and the possibilities of teaching. If you might recall, at the end I suggested that you think about what you could or what you might be able to teach. Well, let's explore that further. So let's talk about sharing your knowledge and skills. So I'm going to talk a little bit about my own experiences. I was formerly an accountant and I worked in accounting and finance for about 20 years. So over 20 years, there's a lot of experience that one gains. After that, I went into IT, and what I did is I was a consultant and I helped companies implement financial systems. And at the time, being an accountant was an advantage because more often than not, you either had people who studied just, let's say, accounting and finance, and then you had people in IT who were programmers, system administrators, and quite often very focused on that particular area. However, in the industry I went into, at the time, more and more organizations were automating their accounting. And so it just made sense to have someone who could perhaps act as a bridge between people who are in IT or computing and the finance people. So my job was to fit in between. So gradually I developed my IT skills, but really it was my finance skills that allowed me to go into IT. And perhaps that was because I was open-minded, I was ready to learn. And so gradually I developed another skill. Later, I decided to change again. I had various goals, and like anyone, we all have different goals in life, and I felt that I needed a change. And so I decided to go into teaching, and I taught English. The interesting thing is that when I was at school, I was probably one of the best in the class at English, and later on, I often thought about doing a degree in English, but perhaps it was family circumstances, my background. There was a kind of pressure and I went into accountancy. But lo and behold, I came full circle and started teaching English and got into education. And so I was in education for about 15 years. And again, 15 years is quite a long time. Not only was I a language instructor, but later on I was promoted to other roles that required other kinds of skills. And interestingly, there were skills that I may have learnt whilst I was an accountant, let's say organising, being an administrator. And at the same time in education, technology was also beginning to take hold. In addition to that, I was also learning new things when I went into my other roles, one of which was professional development. As it happened, circumstances changed for me, and when I was in that circumstance, I had to think again, what was I going to do? So perhaps the first thing was, what can I do with the knowledge that I have? And over the years, I'd accumulated a great deal of experience. I'd accumulated finance and accounting knowledge. I'd accumulated a reasonable amount of IT knowledge, and then I'd gone into education. So gradually, as I had gone through these jobs, I was learning new skills, and depending on the situation, I was using those different skills. And in fact, if you think about your own situation, as you've gone through your work life, you must have gained many skills. Just think of all the training that you've done. Just think of all the many, many different roles that you've played. Or perhaps just a day at work. What different kinds of skills did you utilize to get your job done? Yes, perhaps you're a specialist. Perhaps a major part of your role is to do something specific. But how do you get the job done? It's through a combination of all kinds of different skills. So in my new circumstance, I was thinking, what can I do? I have this knowledge. And so what I started doing was doing some research, some reading, and thinking to myself, now how can I link the knowledge that I have to something that's related. If I'm good in, let's say, accounting, can I be good in investing? Can I be good in teaching finance courses? What about my English teaching knowledge? Could I become a proofreader? Could I become a copywriter? Could I help people to communicate? So what I was really doing, I was trying to link the skills that I had to other topics that there may be some relationship to. And as you can see, using existing knowledge to connect with similar ideas. So I would say not just similar ideas, but even dissimilar ideas. Over our working lives, we gather so many different kinds of skills that really it's just a matter of trying to adapt them and see how they can potentially fit in. So that's what we need to think about. We need to think about potential. So here's a task for you before we go to the next video. Think about all of your work experience to date. You heard me talking about my experiences. Well, there were so many. Think about what your experience has been to date. I don't think it would be incorrect to say that you probably used a variety of skills, maybe 20, 30, 40, maybe even 50 different skills. How can you potentially turn those into knowledge that you can share? And what skills can you talk about? You may have had a skill that you were really good at. Perhaps others can benefit from your experience. Perhaps you don't even know, but you could really inspire others simply by talking about the skills that you have and the skills that you used in the past. How can you share that? Think about and try and picture how others would feel if you were to share the knowledge that you have. There's a lot that people need to learn. So don't underestimate the experience and the skills that you have. So write them down. This is really the task. Think about all the experiences that you've had, all of the skills that you've used, and perhaps at this time you can't remember all of them. But once you start writing them down, it'll all start coming back to you slowly. So please do that. Writing down things helps us to clear our mind. It helps us to be more focused. Don't worry about being perfect. Just write whatever comes to your mind. And I'm sure that you probably will surprise yourself when you come up with a very substantial list of skills that you might think that, yes, I can talk about those. All the best.